Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, please email me. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. That's still my email. It is still in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Reach out to me directly. I am still T Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today we discuss the Breitling Navitimer. This is the Breitling Navitimer 01 Chronograph 43 in rose gold. The watch measuring 43 millimeters in diameter, 14.3 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 49 millimeters with a nice broad 22 millimeter stance between the lugs. When I throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it wears beautifully. That said, I am right on the borderline of being able to fit this well. It is attractive, it fits comfortably, it sits securely, and you can even see in profile it's not as thick as you might think, but because the lug-to-lug is fairly broad, you could see that you probably shouldn't be wearing this watch on a wrist any smaller than mine. If you got a smaller wrist, go with the Navitimer 41. The watch is attractive and classically Breitling, but it's also a rich example of the pilot's watch. This may not be so much for pilots as for the guy who's sitting in the passenger compartment of the Gulfstream. This is a watch that features a very authentic aviator's aesthetic, albeit in a mid-century mode. We have this lovely calfskin black matte strap with a contrasting stitch, a lot of bolstering to give it value and heft and solidity. We have a sheer cut side to show you how thick these layers of leather are, and Breitling straps always feel super luxurious. While this is generally considered to be mainstream market luxury, the straps feel like they belong on something like a Patek Philippe 5524G Calatrava Pilot, a wonderfully soft calfskin on the bottom. And then we've got a buckle in rose gold. It's relatively conventional, not a whole lot to shout out here. Pin buckles are pin buckles, but we got the Breitling anchor and wings, and we actually have an elevated bridge. So what that means is we've got the ability to sort of tuck the strap in between the prongs, and it sits flush inside the buckle so it doesn't stack up and add height on the wrist. So that's a nice small refinement and attention to detail I appreciate. The Navitimer, design-wise, has not changed a whole lot since the mid-50s. Whether you believe it came out in 1952 or 1954, it's definitely of that era with very narrow mid-case, relatively little beveling of the case flank, and then very squared-off lugs. The case back is stepped in several millimeters, so when it's on the wrist, it actually appears thinner than it is. We have vintage-inspired pump pushers for the chronograph, a Breitling B on the push-down crown, 30 meters of water resistance. The Breitling was not the first, either as the Navitimer or as the Chronomat, with the circular slide rule. I believe a Mimo logo was the first to have a circular slide rule bezel in the 1940s. Then came the Chronomat with a somewhat more sophisticated pairing of a chronograph and a circular slide rule bezel, and then came the Navitimer with a much more complete circular slide rule that included various calibrations and units that could be used for making every calculation necessary at the time in the course of operating an aircraft. So you have the circular slide rule, and if you're familiar with slide rules, you know they usually have a couple of different scales. Well, this is missing some of those scales because for the most part it's just designed for multiplication and for division. So I'll show you how this works. Let's say I want to divide 60 by 30. Now, the thing about slide rules is you got to keep your decimal place in mind because that could be 600, it could be 6. It's not going to help you out on that front. So this is how you do that. I'm dividing 60 by 30. I'm setting it up like a fraction with the 60 over the 30. And then I go and I look at the inner red index. See how there's that little red 10 on the inner scale? We got red 60 on the outer scale, red 10 on the outer scale, and then we got this red 10 on the inner scale. And you can see just above that, 20. So 60 divided by 3, we'll say, is 20. Alternatively, 6 divided by 2, or 6 divided by 3 could be 2. Another thing now, setting up multiplication. Okay, let's say I want to set up 15 times 2. I put the 15 over the red 10 on the inner scale. Now, I want to multiply 15 by 2, so I seek out 2 on the inner scale, and I look just above that. 15 times 2 is 30. Very simple. You can use it for calculating your airspeed, your ground speed, your rate of climb, drift, fuel consumption, or just calculating the tip at a restaurant. And once you get good with it, you can beat your friends with their smartphones. Now, there's a lot going on this dial. It's a highly technical aesthetic, and that's sort of germane to the Navitimers. We have a combination of the white scale outboard, which is highly dished. Then we have the black inner scale. Everything is gilt or golden toned in the printing of the dial. And then we have gold-plated indices for the hours, gold-plated hands, the Breitling anchor B counterweight. We have the Breitling wings on the dial, and then sunken sub-registers with internal concentric patterns. And with the exception of the chronograph hours, we actually have two radially arrayed set of numerals, and then the chronograph hours are right side up. They are erect. We have a stop seconds function. We have a quick set date, so you can rapidly cycle the date. And we have a vertical clutch for the chronograph, so it always engages without any jump or staggering, and always resets perfectly to the index at 60. The vertical clutch also means there's no additional wear and tear. If you like to run your chronograph full time and just have center seconds, you can do that with a vertical clutch. There's a column wheel. I could take my word for it because we got a solid case back, but there's a column wheel that makes for an outstanding tactile experience, and it has a nice sharp click to it. And the B01 caliber, that is the Breitling in-house automatic chronograph, it's got one of the best column wheel feels in the business. It beats away at 4 hertz, it pivots on 47 joules, and it is adjusted in 5 positions. It is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer with a 70-hour automatic winding reserve. And you can see on the reverse side, we have a little conversion table if you wish to convert temperature. So for example, you can see where freezing lies. So you can see 0 on the Celsius scale is right above 32 on the Fahrenheit scale. We have a combination of polish and then media blast at the center. And this watch is remarkably rich with a solid gold caseback, feeling notably hefty even for its size. We'll do a quick lume shot so you can see what the watch looks like in the dark. Plenty of luminescence, just not of the chronograph features, but then again, very few chronographs have lumed sub-registers. If you love this classic pilot's watch from Breitling, reach out to me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.